Okay, so today's class is going to be about unlocking the rib cage. And as I mentioned in my email, I've always sort of had a disdain for the word rib cage because it's really not meant to function or be like a cage. If it is, we're sort of in trouble, right? But it's interesting right now with the experience that we're going through during this time that we often it's an interesting metaphor that we are feeling a little bit caged in, right? Boxed in. It's like safer at home, all those kinds of things that become translated into our body as feeling like we've got to protect ourselves, right? And it's that feeling of needing protect ourselves, especially this whole area around the heart center and around our breath. You know, we're protective of our breath. We don't want to take in something that might be a virus. So this whole feeling of contraction around this area, which is really our life force, the ability of our rib cage to have more of a bellows type of movement, to be the pump for our breath or our life force, is foundational to our health and well-being. So today, what I'd really like us to begin to explore is how it's possible for us to, on the external, have all of this feeling of kind of needing to be safe, but internally not having that be translated into restriction and into our bodies so that we can stay free, we can stay open, we can stay resilient in our bodies, whether or not we're locked in our houses or not. So it's important to know that we actually can experience freedom despite what's going on out there. So we're going to be working with, this is what is the rib area, that if you notice, there's sort of what they call a bucket handle function to the ribs. So if you imagine that these, where my thumb is and where my finger is where the ribs attach in the back and the front. And when a person breathes in, there's this bucket handle motion of the ribs. In other words, when you breathe in, there's a lifting and a spreading of the ribs. And when you breathe out, there's a lowering. So if you think of a bucket handle that was attached onto the two ends of a bucket, the motion would sort of be smaller, but in this way, like lifting a bucket handle and lowering a bucket handle. And every time you breathe in, optimally, when that bucket handle lifts, this joint right here turns as it relates and connects to the spine. So there's a little twisting action that happens on each of these levels with each bucket handle rising and falling. And so that keeps all of these joints in our spine, as the ribs relate to the spine, that keeps all of these joints healthy, expanding. But many of us don't really breathe very much into our back, right? We tend to breathe more into the front. So we're going to be exploring how we can start getting some breath more into the back, because mid-back stiffness is really a common problem for a lot of people. And one of the reasons for that is when we're like sitting at our computers and we're sort of in this flexed position, these joints kind of get stuck in the open position. And then when we try to go upright, they sort of forget how to be a suspensory support for our spine in an upright position. So it's important not only for the breath coming into the back, actually the breath we want to have three-dimensionally, right? All three front, back, sides of the ribs are expanding and contracting with each breath. That's why it's more like a bellows than a cage. So that's that's going to be part of what we're going to explore today. And some of it I'd like to do sitting in a chair. So have a chair available, not a soft, cushy kind of a, lounge chair, but a chair that you can sit upright in, even if it's a stool. So we'll use that later, but just have it available for yourself. So let's begin by just centering and relaxing. So you can go ahead and find a position on the floor. Just lying on your back in a place where you can rest comfortably. And close your eyelids down. Just kind of closing off the outside stimulus of the world and coming into your inner world, your inner sensing. Breathing in and out through your nose. Nose breathing is related to parasympathetic nervous system. So as you breathe in and out through your nose, you're beginning to signal your parasympathetic nervous system, which is part of our nervous system that slows things down, allows us to relax into that deeper state of calm. So as you begin to just downshift a little bit, slow down your exhalations. Gradually finding that rhythm of your breath that's just right for you today. And allow the edges of your eyes to soften. So that your eyes can just relax all the small muscles around your eyes and float in the pools of your eye sockets. And allow your jaw to be unhinged, slightly open. So there's a little space between your teeth. And feel your shoulders drop as if they were like ice melting in the warm sun. And with your next in-breath, just see if you can visualize those bucket handles. So bring some awareness to your lower ribs. And as you breathe in, just saying the word rising. And just imagine those bucket handles rising as the rib cage or the ribs expand and open. and falling on your out breath as your ribs come together. So you can just sort of see that lifting and lowering of the bucket handles, rising with the in-breath and falling with the out-breath. Just sort of bringing that image into your body allows it to begin to feel that natural motion that maybe we have a habit of forgetting. Just repeating, rising on the inhalation and falling on the exhalation. Letting your breath be fluid, soft, and easy. And as you keep breathing, just feel the sensations of the breath. Starting in your belly, feel it as a fluid moving wave that starts in your belly and comes up your chest. Feel it rising to the top. And then feel the fluid wave moving and leaving your chest as it falls back down. So allow the wave of the breath starting in the belly to rise up into your chest as you say the word rising. And as you say the word falling, allow the breath to just fall back down, slowing out the out breath, slowing down the out breath. Allowing that rising wave of in-breath and that falling wave of out-breath to just lull your nervous system into a deeper state of relaxation. And if your mind saunters off, you can just bring it back, repeating, rising on the in-breath and falling on the out-breath. The edges of your eyes melting. Your jaw is relaxed, slightly open. Shoulders dropped. And you're just riding the fluid wave of your breath, rising and falling. And get acquainted with how your breath is moving without judging it or really analyzing it. Just see if you can feel, where's my breath moving in my body and where maybe doesn't it reach? Because we're going to be doing lots of different ways of increasing the volume of our breath very naturally. But just feel what it's like now for you without changing it. And for now, just feel the relief of nothing to do, but just be. Just be right here now, rising with the in-breath and falling with the out-breath. Relaxing more deeply into this moment. And now take your hands and just place them on your lower ribs. If your hands are comfortable using the web of your hand so that the thumbs wrap around toward the back of the ribs, your arms don't have to go too far behind, just either on the front or the sides, but using the web of your hand with your thumb as if you were creating a bucket handle over your ribs. And just once again, as you breathe in, just feel the flaring and the widening of your ribs as if there's that lifting of the bucket handle, and you can lift your elbows a little away from your body to exaggerate that lift of the ribs. And as you exhale, bring the elbows a little closer down towards your body and just feel the closing of the ribs. So you're just letting your hands amplify the movement of the bucket handles, lifting the ribs on the in-breath and lowering the ribs with the out-breath. So we're focusing on the side to side or the lateral expansion of the ribs, but you might also become curious about what's possible to bring some breath into my back. So as the elbows are widening away from your body, the bucket handles are lifting. Can you send a little breath in toward your back as if you wanted to fill up the space behind your heart? There's actually a lot of room back there, more room than there is in the front of the chest. Because in the front, we have the lungs, we have the heart. So just become curious about what happens if I invite some breath to come into my back. So in between these ribs are muscles called the intercostal muscles. We have the internal and the external and the inner. So there's 3 layers of intercostal muscles. So we're actually allowing those muscles to hydrate, to get some exercise. Because if they're held in a stiff, rigid position, then they don't get to expand and contract. And then they become, as William Reich, who was a great psychologist, said, this is where we carry a lot of emotional armor. Okay, so now more on that to come, but bend your knees and stand on your feet. And make a circle with your arms in such a way that your fingertips don't quite touch, but imagine that you are holding a beach ball right over your chest. So your fingertips are facing each other, but not quite touching. And there's this soft elbows because this is a round ball. And now, as you take your next breath in, allow that ball to expand and widen just a couple inches. And as it does, see if you can feel the inflating in the front of your chest. So as the ball expands, so does your hands, your arms. As you take a breath in, the chest expands and opens. And then as the breath exhales, allow the ball to shrink a little as if you were going to hug it, kind of not gripping it, but just a little hug, like a squeezing of that ball as you gently squeeze your breath out. So we're going to be using the motion of the arms to begin to work with these bucket handles. This time they're not rising and falling like on the sides, but they're expanding in the front and then the back. So we're working the front and back of the ribs at this moment. So you'll probably feel that as your ball expands and your arms widen apart, that maybe the back is starting to arch a little bit, and that's natural. And then as you exhale and give that ball a bit of a squeeze like you're hugging it, the arms come in together. Now we're exhaling out the breath and squeezing it all out. And don't get too overly, if you find that you're using a lot of tension to squeeze the ball, see if you can just do a little gentle squeeze. Now, as you saw on the skeleton, there's so many different ribs with different angles. So I'd like to explore changing the position of your arms. So each time you go to do another inhale where your ribs widen and expand, just change the arm angle a little. So maybe move up an inch towards your head or move down an inch towards your feet. And just play with this expansion, contraction, because we're actually opening and closing all those joint spaces using the breath, finding your own rhythm where you're gentle and easy and exploring. When you're working with breath, you never want to get pushy. It's an invitation to allow this life force to begin to move in different ways in your body. And you might find a particularly interesting angle. Maybe one rib feels like, oh yeah, that's a place that feels like it's been stuck for me. And just notice how you can begin to explore with these changing of angles of the arms, the expansion, the widening of the breath and the arms, the narrowing of the ribs with the out breath as you hug the ball a little bit. And the value of hugging the ball is to really feel that you can press the air out. So oftentimes we never fully empty out the old carbon dioxide. And it's really beneficial to squeeze out the last bit of that, like squeezing out a tube of toothpaste, so that you're then allowing 100% brand new breath to come in and fill you up. So just allowing your experience to be fully what it is. There's nothing to compare yourself to. There's no right way. This is an exploration into your own body, your own internal sensing, because of course, as we change the breath, we change the whole physiology of the body. You produce chemicals in your body that are more relaxing, more the endorphins. Your hormones regulate. Your whole nervous system begins to become more regulated. Your heartbeat changes. All kinds of physiological things happen as you begin to alter your breath and your capacity for breathing. Okay, so after you've explored a number of different angles, now imagine that you're holding onto this ball and take the whole ball as if you were bringing it over to the right. So you're just going to rotate your whole torso as if you were taking the ball and bringing it over to the right. And let your head and your eyes look at the ball as you're rolling it to the side. And then go to the left. So just beginning to introduce a rolling motion. It's like you have a hold of this ball and you're just going to roll the ball side to side. And just notice if you're still breathing. Sometimes as soon as we start doing a different type of movement, we hold our breath. So just how can I do this movement in a way where I'm still connected with my breath? So your eyes, your head are looking at the ball, and now let your knees go opposite from whichever way your ball is rolling. So knees to one side, and you're rolling the ball to the opposite side. And if you start to feel that you're shrugging your shoulders, maybe you're holding some tension in your shoulders, just see if you can maybe lower the angle of the ball a little. And so soften and drop the shoulders. Now, what would it be like to let your head go in the same direction of your knees? So your ball is going one direction, and now your knees and your nose are going the same direction. The ball is the only thing going opposite. Just feel what that feels like along your spine, changing the organization of your head, no longer moving with your arms, but moving opposite. And really relaxing into this movement. Movement, when it's done from a relaxed place, not a place of tension, is so nurturing, so satisfying, so enjoyable. So, where's that place in myself where I can just move with relaxation and ease? So now re-coordinate your head and your eyes so they're moving with the ball again. So now the knees are opposite. The head and the arms are going the same direction. And then the next time your arms are on one side and your knees are on the other side, just pause right there. And now make a half circle to get to the other side that goes up and around. So you're going to take the ball up and around over your head like a hoop and transition your ball to the opposite side, and your knees end up opposite from your arms. So that's the half circle we're going to explore. And breathing. So as you breathe into making this half circle that goes up and around, just begin to soften the ribs. What would it feel like to soften the ribs? How could I move in such a way that I could fold and bend and easily, malleably soften the ribs? Now, if for any reason your arms are not comfortable, like with your hands interlaced like that, you can hold on to your elbows. That's another alternative way to do this. Now, the next time your knees are on one side and your elbows and arms are opposite, pause there. And this time, make the other half circle, which would go down and around in front of your abdomen. Your arms will cross to the other side, but this time you're crossing over your abdomen. It's a different part of the hoop. So see what works best for you. Your hands are either interlaced or you're holding onto your elbows so that you're engaged in this sort of swing of the arms and this twisting action of the spine. Still breathing. Now, the next time your knees are on one side and your elbows and arms are on the other, pause there. And this time, visualize that we've now done two halves of a circle. So now we're going to link the two halves together to make one entire circle. The trick is that every time your arms end up on one side, your knees will be on the opposite. So the circle's going to be a continuous motion, but the timing is such that every time your arms are on one side of the body, the knees have transitioned over to the opposite side. So you have to find how you can find that timing in your body. One continuous circle in which your ribs are becoming this malleable, soft. It's like clay that you're molding through the movement. And then the next time your knees are on one side and your arms are on their opposite side, reverse the circle. So going the other direction. And reuse the movement and the breath to begin to bend and fold and twist and turn the ribs. So we're like creating lots of different angles of motion for softening. And gradually complete the one that you're on. Come to a resting position. And take a few refreshing, cleansing breaths. Breathing in, rising. And breathing out, falling. And just begin to notice if you feel into the movement of the bucket handles. Notice if they're moving any differently. any more freely. If you bring awareness into breath in the back, is there any more filling of your breath coming into your back? And relax your shoulders even more. Your jaw still unhinged. You can relax your tongue on the floor of your mouth so there's a little space between your teeth. So now gradually transition yourself to coming to sit in your chair. So ideally you want to be in a chair where your feet are touching the floor. Perhaps if you have it, a chair in which your knees can be slightly lower than your hip joints so that your knees are not too close to your chest, which causes your body to slump. Okay. So the reason working in a chair is so good for ribs is we can use gravity to our advantage. So if you have your arms alongside your body, we're not going to force anything. We're going to allow and just see what's possible as we invite softening to come into the ribs. So again, when we're working with an area that tends to be armored and guarded and protective, you try to force anything and it will just push you out. So it's always a softening, an invitation to, if you approach it with that attitude, the body will be so much more responsive. So imagine now that there was something on the floor and your right arm was just going to reach without doing anything special with your neck. So your neck's just going to follow what your spine is doing. So if your arm was to reach down toward the floor, or if your right arm had a heavy bucket of sand and you were just lowering that bucket of sand to the floor, can you just fold your ribs to the right? And do that with your exhale. And then come back up. So it doesn't matter at all how far you curve. We're just exploring what's it like to use the exhale and fold the ribs on the right as if we're leaning that direction, as if your right arm were becoming longer. So being very gentle, even more gentle than you would normally, because your body is now in relationship to gravity. And so it has more to adjust to. So begin to notice as you do this folding motion with your exhale, what's happening in your sits bones? Does it become more weighted on the right? Your sits bones are those bones underneath the pelvis that we're meant to sit on. And just see if you can feel those two protrusions of the bones that you're sitting on as you kind of fold your body. And your neck is just following what the spine is doing, it's not twisting. Now let's do the same thing on the left side. So exhaling out and just kind of folding a little bit. What you may begin to notice as you fold Ribs work like an accordion. When one side becomes shorter, the other side becomes expanded. Find the most easy, comfortable, natural way to do this with your exhale. Just feeling and sensing the shift in your weight of your sits bones. Does your weight go more onto the left or more onto the right? Okay, now place your right hand on the top of your head and make it so that your fingers are pointing to the left. Your hand just right on the crown or the top of your head. And now go ahead and fold and bend to the right. It's a different configuration. Don't yank on your neck. Just let your neck follow the curvature of your spine. The folding happens with your exhale. And just giving yourself full permission to go inside and just feel your experience. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect. There's no right or wrong. It's an exploration, just becoming curious what happens. And now, as you're folding to the right, notice how your weight is. Is it shifting more onto the right sits bones or the left sits bones? Now, place your left hand on top of your head with your fingers pointing to the right. And place the web of your right hand on your right ribs. So like we did in the beginning with the bucket handles right on the ribs here, if you can. If you can't with your if your thumb doesn't like to do that, you can just have your hand here on the side. Left hand is on top of your head, your right web of hand or hand is on your ribs. And now fold to the right and see if you can just kind of feel that your hand on the right is causing a little shift of the ribs to the left. So you're giving a little encouragement with your exhale. Again, one side, the right side is closing, and you can use the lift of the left elbow a little bit to open the left side. Please listen to your neck so there's no straining of your neck. If you're really letting your neck just curve with your spine, the hand is there to support your head. And it's as if the whole thing was a bamboo reed just curving all together. You'll feel that your ribs are shifting a little to the left. And notice your sits bones. Which sits bone are you shifting over to? Is it the right or the left? Each time you fold, it's an exhale. So your exhale is helping to assist the movement. As you return, it's an inhale. Okay, let's shift the hands now. So your right hand is on top of your head. Fingers are pointing to the left, and then your left web of your hand, or the option is just to have the palm of your hand on your left ribs. And same movement to the left. You're folding to the left with your exhale. And you're just reminding your nervous system of the possibility of mobility rather than rigidity. Softening the armor. Okay, now interlace your hands behind your head, not on your neck, but on your skull. Now, I love to show this movement to my clients who spend very much time sitting at a computer because it's one of the best movements you can do to break up a period of computer work. And it really reinvigorates you. It will increase your concentration as well as sort of break the cycle of long periods of sitting and the eye strain and the sort of forward head posture that occurs with a lot of computer work. So have your elbows together for starters, so close in. And now rock your pelvis back. So this movement starts with the pelvis, as if you're rolling the bowl of your pelvis back. And you'll notice as you roll the pelvis back that the elbows naturally start to lower towards your knees a little bit. You want to exhale when you do that. And now begin to rock your pelvis forward. And as you do that, just begin to lift the elbows and look up with your eyes. So your hands can be a pillow for your head to kind of rest back in. So again, rock the pelvis backward. So you're rolling back behind your sits bones as your elbows go forward. The whole spine is rounding and curving. With your exhale, squeeze all the breath out. As you inhale, rock the pelvis forward. Look up with your eyes and just lifting the elbows as much as is comfortable for you. See if you can feel a lifting of the chest. Now, I'm going to add some nuances to this. So this time, rock the pelvis back. Bring the elbows down toward the knees again and stay there for just a moment. And see if staying here, you can begin to inhale, just inhaling a bit, feel the inclination of the elbows to lift. And as you exhale, feel the elbows sink down more, opening up the back of the spine. And just do a few breaths here. It's a kind of a small lift of the elbows with the in-breath, and then a lowering of the elbows with the out-breath. Now, as you breathe in, there's a slight lift of the elbows. With the out-breath, see if you can kind of side to side, what I call feather down. So it's a little bit of think of a feather rocking itself down. So it's a side to side wiggle type of a motion, just a gentle rocking. And that tends to release any tension along the back of the spine. So I'll say that again. As you breathe in, there's a slight uplift. As you breathe out, there's just this sort of feathering down, and a feather means a side to side rocking motion, just very gently, easily letting the head lower comfortably down toward your knees. And one more time, breathe in, slight uplift. And breathe out, feathering down. Now this time we can get a little help from our feet pushing against the earth. So as we do the uplift and breathe in, feel how if you push into your feet, you're actually activating the legs to help you lift. So you're lifting all the way back up, you're rocking your pelvis forward, and then exhale and feather down again, rocking a little bit side to side. Again, rock the pelvis forward, push into your feet. Pushing into your feet actually helps you feel like you're getting taller. Big in breath. Now, another option right here, some people really like this. Open the elbows apart so that you can feel that the chest is like your heart is lifting toward the sun. And the head just really gets to relax back in your hands. Elbows forward, feathering down. Rocking the pelvis forward, pushing into the feet. The belly expands and opens, the chest lifts. It's up to you whether you want to spread the elbows apart or keep them in. Either way is fine. Good, and now just lower the arms for a moment. Now, I just want to show you one other way to do this because not everybody might have had shoulders that could be in this position. An alternate way, and sometimes this is useful, like I do this if I'm at an airport or something and I don't want to have my arms doing this, put your hands right on the front of your thighs. So right here on the front of your thighs, we can do the same thing. So let your pelvis rock back and you can still feather down. You can even just let your arms hang down toward the floor. And then push into your feet and rock the pelvis forward. Lift the chest. You can open the arms like you're turning the palms upward. Again, pelvis feathering down. The feathering again releases tension on either side of the spine. Rock the pelvis forward, push down with the feet, and lift the chest. So there's lots of variations to this same movement. I want to give you lots of choices. Some of you might respond more to one than another. So just pause for a moment. Quietly go inside. And breathe in. Feel your rising breath. And just feel the volume of space that your breath moves into. If we think of this three-dimensional round tunnel of ribs, can you feel your breath moving to the back, to the sides, to the front, equally in all directions? Breathing in, rising, and breathing out, falling. And with each falling breath, it's an opportunity for you to really release. The exhale is our surrender, releasing, letting go of what we don't need to carry around. So, what wants to let go with my next exhale? What am I letting in with my next inhale? Now, this time, can you place your hands on either sides of your cheeks? So you've cupped your jaw. Your jaw can relax. Just see if your jaw can hang there in your hands. And start to make a circle with your right elbow so that your elbow kind of moves a little forward, out to the side, and then back in, as if you were drawing a circle with your elbow. And I invite you to really let your ribs and your head dance with this circle. By dance, it means be creative. Let your body inform you. Oh, how would I let my whole, and so how big your elbow circle is depends on how playful you want to be and how your body is informing the movement. But if I was really interested in all these different angles of ribs and how I could begin to soften and move my ribs, I might get very inclined to explore just all this different motion that's available if I bring my circle more to the side, more in front. There's no rules. It's just how your body is giving you information, informing the movement. And then do the same thing with the left circle, left elbow, making a circle. And if I could really fold and bend and twist the ribs in the way that the elbow was giving it the opportunity, how might I begin to move my body? And then can you do oppositional circles? So it's like each elbow making its own circle and letting your body kind of dance. Upper body moves, folding, bending, twisting. Really requires letting the neck go. So if there's any holding in the neck, just really use your hands to support your cheeks so that the head feels safe. And make the movement small enough that you can relax into it. Okay, and relax that. Now I'm going to teach you something. I use it with my clients a lot, but I've never actually taught it in a class. My skeleton just lost a leg. So this area right here is where the diaphragm is. So the diaphragm lives right up here on the inside of the ribs. So when we breathe in, the diaphragm contracts and lowers, which is why you have to expand the belly. Otherwise, the organs have nowhere to expand into. So when you breathe in, the elevator of the diaphragm goes down, and when you breathe out, the elevator goes up. this area, this shelf right here can have a lot of tension, mostly because if we've spent a lot of time folded doing computer work or driving or whatever, there gets to be a lot of tension here. So I'm going to be asking you to use the soft part of your hand, your little finger side, to come right underneath this shelf. And then we're going to fold over that. And then we're going to lift and we're going to actually open the space up for this diaphragm. So it's quite profound, and it's really an important thing to know how to do for yourself. So here's the soft part of my hand, the little finger side. We're going to do one side at a time because it is a little uncomfortable, because when your hands are there, it's not so easy to breathe. But doing one side at a time is easier. So if you take both hands and see if you can walk your fingers along that arch there, you'll feel there's a bone there. If you go too low, then you're into the soft tissue. So find where you can be right on the ledge of the bone. So you're right on this ledge right here. Use the two little fingers, sides of your hands. And what I want you to do is kind of get under the ledge a little. You can fold your body a little so you feel like, oh yeah, I know where I am on that ledge. Pick whatever side you're doing first. And now begin to exhale and fold your fingers, fold over your fingers. So you're letting your whole body go forward. Let your belly relax. Breathe out. And once you're down there, start to do that little bit of a feathering motion, or I call this rocking the baby. It's like if you had a small baby and you're just rocking, you're sort of underneath that ledge and you're just rocking side to side a little, and you're freeing up all the ligaments underneath your diaphragm. And now go ahead and take an in breath. And as you breathe in, imagine that you're lifting that whole rib cage. Lift, lift, lift as you breathe in, and feel that your fingers are helping to create some space there. Okay, let's do it again. So very soft. You don't use any force here. You're being very kind to yourself. This is a vulnerable area. And you don't have to go very far. For some people, there might just be can be a lot of tension here. So even just doing this a little bit is perfectly fine. So with your exhale, you're folding over the costal arch. You're just feeling your fingers and you're folding over them. Let your belly relax. And then while you're here, just rocking side to side. Now with your in-breath, breathe in and lift and lift and lift, and imagine that you're separating this rib cage away from your hips. And relax. And now take a couple breaths and just feel how we only did 2 times, which is pretty much all you need to do. See if there's any more expanse of volume on that side. This movement can actually change your whole posture. You might feel that you're sitting differently in your chair. Take a moment to feel your rising and your falling breath. I don't know about you, but my right side, which is the one I just did, feels twice as big and expansive. So let's do the left side. Go ahead and find this very soft edge of your hands. You're kind of just like you would hold a baby, only you're holding your rib cage. Finding that ledge that you can tuck your little fingers underneath and then fold over with your exhale. And once you're folded, you just do that rocking motion, whether you call it feathering or rocking the baby, you're just releasing the ligaments, the suspensory ligaments that hold the diaphragm in place, releasing any tension there. You don't have to hold your breath out the whole time. So if you need to breathe while you're here, take a breath. And then with your next in-breath, you're going to lift these ribs. Let's do that one more time on this side. So it's possible to get closer under, but it gets more uncomfortable. So know that you can, there's different placements of your hand. You can get closer toward the midline. And it's fine and it's really good, but it may be a little more uncomfortable. So feel in your own body where there's some tension. Oftentimes it's closer toward the center where there's more tension. Exhaling out and folding forward. Rocking side to side. Next in-breath, breathe in and lift and lift and lift. It's as if you're opening up the front of your diaphragm. This is such a useful thing to do for anyone who's been in an accident. You get the wind knocked out of you. Anyone who has asthmatic breathing. I mean, I could go on, but doing that for yourself regularly, you'll keep this expanse of your diaphragm and the ribs. So just take a breath in now and just feel the effect of that. And just as you visualize with your in-breath, that diaphragm contracting and the elevator going down, you might notice if there's more freedom in this costal arch, this area to lift with the in-breath. And as it exhales, just notice in your own body what the effect of that is. Okay, please come to lie on your right side. So we're going to do a movement which I love for the ribs. I'm going to show you it in two versions because not everybody can support themselves side lying in the way that is the traditional way to do this movement. So I'll have Bruce demonstrate both. This movement is called the reclining Buddha. So if you're able to, you want to have your elbow right underneath your shoulder. So not above, not too close, but stacking the joints so your elbow is right underneath your shoulder. Your hand is right underneath the ears on the bottom side. The bottom side would be, so wrap it around a little more so you're just above your ears on the right. Ear, I should say. Ear on the right. So this is the optimal position, but if you can't support yourself side lying in this way, if it bothers your shoulder to do that, in a moment I'll show you the alternate way. So the movement goes like this. You're going to lengthen your top leg, and as your top leg gets longer, your head lowers as the ribs expand on the top side of your body. Breathing in. Now shorten your leg and lift your head and let the ribs on the bottom side, close to the floor, sag. So we're using the ribs like an accordion. Once again, lengthen the leg, expand the top side ribs, shorten the leg, exhale, and expand the bottom side ribs. So for those of you that are comfortable doing it this way, continue. For those of you that aren't comfortable, then go ahead and rest your head on the floor. Hold on to your head. Keep your top leg straight. Now what you're going to do is lift your head and your leg away from the floor. So you're folding the ribs. As you lower the leg, you're going to lengthen the arm and expand the ribs. So arm goes long, overhead. So 2 ways to do this. Make sure that this is all about the side of your body. You're not rolling forward or back. You're only working with side to side motion. Being very mindful of not pulling or yanking on your head. So for those of you that were more comfortable in the second way, you can continue. For those of you that were doing it the first way, Bruce is demonstrating that now so that you're propped up on your forearm. And just, there is some challenge to this movement, but just see how can I really feel into using this as a way to open and close the ribs. So you're still breathing. If you need to rest in between, that's fine. Okay, now everybody come back down. So have both knees bent. Place your left hand behind your head, right at the skull again. Now, have your bottom arm sort of with a bent elbow and away from, not underneath your head. We're going to be playing with different angles of the ribs. So this time, take your elbow, your top elbow, and see if you can bring your elbow forward as if you wanted to touch the wrist of your bottom arm. So if your bottom arm needs to change its position, now that I've told you what you're going to be aiming for, then change the position of your bottom arm so that you could, in fact, roll to touch where your wrist would be. And now we're going to continue to do this movement, but the next time, see if you can touch your palm, the palm of your hand. So again, you might need to change where your bottom hand is because your elbow on the top side is moving to touch your bottom hand. And so on the next one, see if you can bring your elbow to touch your bottom elbow. So each time we change the angle, it's like we're aiming for the point of the elbow to touch somewhere different on the bottom arm. It changes the rib angles. Now, naturally, the elbow coming forward would be a good time to exhale. So here's where you can play with this. It's like, oh, what would happen if I reached to touch my pinky finger on the bottom side? How would I need to change the angle to reach that? What would happen if I were changing the angle to touch the thumb of my bottom hand? What if I wanted to change the position of my bottom hand so that I could find some more interesting angles for my ribs to move in? Each time you're rolling forward for your elbow to touch somewhere on your bottom arm, you're exhaling. And each time your elbow's coming back, you're inhaling. This is also a great exercise in proprioception. Proprioception is our ability to know where our body is in space. So each time you change, trying to touch your elbow to some other part of your bottom arm, it's like throwing a dart. You're trying to get right to the bullseye, and that aligns your brain with knowing where your body is in space. Okay, roll on your back for a moment and rest to integrate that before we shift to the other side. So returning again to breathing in, rising, and breathing out, falling. Becoming aware of how rising and falling feels on the two sides of your body. Allowing your shoulders to drop. All right, so let's roll to the other side. So now that you're familiar with the two positions for the reclining Buddha, you can choose whether you're going to do the first position, which is propping yourself up on your bottom forearm. Make sure your elbow's right underneath your shoulder. Your top hand wraps around, so you're cradling your head You would be holding just above the ears on the left side, ear, I should say. Your top leg is long. The second position, your head is on the floor. You're still cradling your head. So if you're in the first position, then you're going to lengthen your leg first. So the leg stays straight. So it's not a bent knee. The leg stays straight the whole time on the top side. You're just lengthening it. As you lengthen, the head lowers to the floor and the ribs spread wide and open. And as you lift the head and bring the elbow close to your side, your ribs fold on the top side and spread on the bottom side. If you're in the alternate position, you have to start with the lifting of the leg and the lifting of the head to fold into the shortened side and then straighten out to go into the elongated side. So 2 ways of accomplishing the same thing. And just check to make sure that you're still breathing, that you haven't put your breath on hold, that you're using your breath to soften these malleable ribs. So in neither of these positions does the top leg knee, the knee never bends. It's a waist shortening and lengthening, so the legs remains straight. Okay, and come back down so that your knees are bent and place your right hand behind your head. So your bottom arm is the arm that you're going to be aiming toward. So now that you know what's coming, you can begin to get curious about, okay, I'm going to bring my elbow toward my bottom arm and touch somewhere different each time. Maybe the first time it's the elbow. Maybe the second time I'm actually going to lift my head so that I can aim all the way to touch inside my palm. There's lots of options here for you to explore. Listening to your own body. And just remember that each time the head is going with the elbow, so the neck isn't staying stationary because the elbow is going forward, the spine's rotating, therefore the head's going with it. The breath is exhaling as the elbow goes to touch somewhere on the bottom side. And the breath inhales as you open the elbow. All right, then complete the one that you're on. Roll back over onto your backs. And take these next few minutes to really be in celebration of the space that you've created for your breath. If this breath were your sacred life force, and you've just created more room, more space, more volume for more life in your body, can you really allow the fullness of that in with your next in-breath? And then can you really allow your body to empty and fully relax with your next out-breath? And as you're breathing, really celebrating the sensation of breath starting in your belly as this fluid moving wave coming up into the chest, rising at the top, and then as it recedes, like the wave recedes, leaving the chest and falling back down, emptying. Can you let your whole body ride the wave of your breath? Feeling the rising breath coming up as it crests at the top, feeling the falling breath as it recedes and empties. And just becoming aware of how this breath is expressed in your body right now. What are you more aware of? So, taking all the time you need to make the transition, you feel ready, you can begin to move your fingers and toes. Begin to bring your awareness back to the space you're in. Feeling more connected, more awake, more aware of your breath. When you feel ready, you can roll to one side and come to a sitting position.